Hello and welcome to the impzonepod podcast. We are back again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And well, today I want to talk about believability. I think believability, we talk about a lot of different aspects of professional wrestling. That level of when you're engrossed, when somebody gets you engrossed into what they're doing, their performance or what have you, that's their believability. If you make me lose myself in the believability of what you're doing, then you've got me hooked. Especially for me, somebody who is a very jaded sort of wrestling fan, and I think a lot of pro wrestlers, they have a lot of passion for this. This is the thing that they do, and whatnot. But it's hard in some ways not to become jaded because this is your life 24/7, 360 something days of the year. Not just that, especially now, you have to do all the interviews. You really have to do all the interviews. You've got to be out there on the social medias taking these interviews and whatnot. For the most part, there are only a few people that can kind of get away with not doing these interviews and not promoting themselves and not, doing whatever it is to get over. I want to take a few specific examples, mostly going to be obviously talking about TNA wrestlers here in this one. Like I've talked about a lot of people here and there and said, Eric Young, one of the best characters, I think, right now. Kazarian, one of the best characters right now as well. I think, those guys, both of them are underrated as far as characters and whatnot, and the level of believability that they both have. And there are many others. I don't want to go through every single one of them. I might go through more of them in a minute, but I'll focus on both of them. Well, mainly Eric Young, I think, here for this. But it's so many of the, not just subtle things, but it's so many of those subtle things that he does, and so many of the actions that he does, and he makes whatever actions he does feel real. He doesn't just do something to do it. He does what he kind of feels is a natural kind of thing. If I was to do the exact same, well, not the exact same, but the exact same sort of thing that he does, or if anyone else was to do it in the way that he does it, it would look fake in some ways. It wouldn't be believable because, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the right way, or it doesn't, there are a few exceptions, of course, but for the most part, most people couldn't act or do the things that he does. It would come off, especially right now, it would come off as cheesy or cheap, or like a cheap imitation of somebody that's kind of crazy, or what have you. I think EY has got it down pat. And this speaks to a man who's been in this business over 20 years, has all that experience underneath his belt, has basically done every role, that's in the business, has a very unique and interesting character, can play both sides of the fence, though I do think he's way better heel, honestly. I think him preaching and telling people, about, different things, and trying to mess with people's minds and things like that is something that I think is kind of really cool and really fun. I certainly think that, a few years ago when he sort of had a sort of an ambassador role of some sort, here and there, that was kind of good because he speaks from the heart. I liked when Scott D'Amore did the same thing and came out and said, TNA, we're effing back and things like that, because he had not just that line, but a lot of those lines in saying where we've been and where we've gone and what we've had to go through and what we've had to earn and things like that, in the past and whatnot, and all the, trials and tribulations that were therein. And I think like the name TNA, like again, I don't want to dive too deep into this, but I think we did discuss it a while back. That name, it carries some value, even though people might scoff at it and say, "Oh, lol, TNA, lol." I think we discussed even that, but again, it actually does, because there's a lot of nostalgia in some ways around those three letters, and those three letters are very valuable sort of branding. Like, that's what branding does. Like, that's how good branding is, because if you have good branding, it's very easy to identify what you're all about. What are you all about? We are all about TNA. We're all about total non-stop action, and the X Division, like, that exemplified what TNA was all about. It was something like, yes, you had the cruiserweights in WCW. Yes, you had your light heavyweights in WWE, though they were way less than what the cruiserweights in WCW were. But even then, you talk about like maybe a couple of years worth of like really good cruiserweights or what have you. But yeah, like that style, that lucha style, was just really being introduced to the US and to America still at that time. It had only been around for like it had only been really around for like 5 years. You'd had your Shawn Michaels before that, kind of thing, and a few other somewhat high flyers, somewhat like Randy Savage, sort of innovating and doing things like that. Obviously, you had your, Mexican legends and whatnot, but it hadn't been very mainstream into the US market. Obviously, the Hurricane Rana and other things, the Dropkick and things like that, were slowly coming in and things like that still. But you still find a lot of these things, trickling in around that time. So you can still call people, I think, innovators in that era. But anyway, and they were still upping the game, in 05, 06, 07, 08, 09, whatnot. So, but yeah, anyway, you look at what a lot of those performers are doing, like Eric Young, and it's not just the risks he takes or the way that he takes those risks with his character work or with his motions or with his emotions or the way which he speaks or what have you or anything like that. It's the culmination of all of those things, like you just watch him, and I watch him, and you don't see the person behind it. He's made, like, that character is very close to him. You can, if you really want to look away and kind of try to see like the realism behind it, you have a very hard time. You can sort of, like, when he's doing interviews, he has a very large passion for this business. And a lot of the things he says are, related to him. Like, he has been, one of the best in the world in terms of character for a long time. He's done it all, So a lot of those things are going to come with, sort of the career that he sort of had in some ways. So again, you've kind of got to put that out there and say, oh, well, he's learned a lot. But still, you look at him like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it was, he was still like Super Eric. Like, he still got that over, like, although it was a cheesy gimmick or whatever it was, he got Super Eric over. He got everything that he was given, or that he got the opportunity to try to do. He did his best to try to get those things over. And, again, maybe you'll look at his, like, return or whatever else it is or whatnot to TNA and look at it as being like, oh, well, he's just doing his sanity stuff, but over here now. You know, not yes, but no. Sort of, but no. He's doing a lot more because he's been given the stage in which to do those things. And it's not them saying, let's shove you in a box and not let you go out there and perform. Because even if you say, well, he's going to lose this match or whatever, or like I've said before, even if I feel like he doesn't have that level of believability as far as wins and losses or what have you, or storyline sometimes, just because of the creative or whatnot, that's not his fault. I still think he cuts really great promos. He still has very decent matches. And even though, as I said before, I feel like he's like winding his way out of the game, he can still do it out there. And like, it is, as I've said thousands of times, and we'll continue to say thousands more times, it's not just about doing 500 super kicks or whatever else it is to pop Dave Meltzer or whatever else it is. It's not about doing all these things. It's about the emphasis on storytelling and making what you're doing in the ring feel real. Not just that, but making your character feel real and connecting, even if it's a heel, with the audience. You've got to be able to feel like, yes, I am linked to this character and I have vested interest in this character. I'm not just playing a cartoon or something that I don't care about or doesn't relate to me, or is just a thing that was thrust upon me. That's the problem with a lot of things, is like, but if you say, hey, let's sit down because we want to talk, and say, well, this is kind of what we wanted to do. We kind of want to do this superhero gimmick. Okay, how can we do, a superhero gimmick with you? Can you come up with some ideas that would help it to work? Because we don't want to just do this thing and you're going to sit here and go, oh, this is stupid and I don't want to do it and da-da-da-da-da-da, and it's not for me, or whatever else it is. Even Cody Deaner, he's still going, and he is a very believable character. His VBD run, absolutely underrated, probably should have led to a world title opportunity at very least, if not a world title run. Same with like Eric Young, like probably a couple of years before that or whatever it was. You could have as well, sort of, I said you could have like ran it for them to both have a big program together or something else. You could have done so many different things, and it felt like they didn't strike while the iron was hot, or they were just like, no, this other stuff's going on, whatever. But it did feel like, wow, this is a really great angle and whatnot. They were both great in it. But the thing is, despite that being a great angle and whatnot, in many ways, it was like, well, what did come out of it? Not really anything, like, who did it make? It didn't make Eric Young, or it didn't make Deaner anything more, because they didn't get elevated to the next level. They didn't get a title shot. They didn't get the belt. They didn't go on for a reign. No one out of those groups really came out of the group and became something bigger down the road, and went on to other success or whatever. So like, and that's not just creative's fault, but certainly when you're looking at building things and whatnot, and sometimes it might be the guys. They might have said, hey, look, we don't want to get into the title picture. The thing is, guys, sometimes, like, if you're one of the hottest things, if not the hottest thing going, well, that's where you need to be. Because even if you say, oh, well, this is not where I envision myself as being more of a guy to get other guys over, well, that's the point. You're holding the title now to put other guys over, not to, really get over yourself, whatever, you're already over. But your performance is so good and it is so, enraptured everyone that we need to put this belt on you because you are a major draw. So any babyface or anything that's going against you is going to really draw, especially like a big time babyface that we've put in 6 months, 8 months, a year, or whatever else it is into chasing you, is going to be absolutely, amazing. So I do think that sometimes, like, and it might be again a timing issue with some things. You might say, oh well, how can you make these things work, or whatever. It's tough, really tough, because people get over at the time that they get over, and people's, like I said, people's level of investment, they need to sometimes be patient and accept that, the company, this is what the companies do. They've not just force, but they force you to come to the next show and come to the next show with the promise, or the eluded promise at least, of maybe the babyface will get it done this time. Like, that's the eluded promise of watching professional wrestling consistently. And that's the idea of, like, having these things be real and having that believability. Because if you have a babyface like WWE had many years ago, and several times actually, with Roman Reigns, with John Cena, etc., several other people, that they weren't accepting because, like, they hadn't really put the right effort in, or whatever else it is, whatever you want to say, or they were just writing them like freaking idiots, like Suffer and Succotash, my son. These guys absolutely sucked. But again, if you look beyond that, what were the fans wanting? Because you could have brought back Batista. He could have been a great asset, and eventually they did turn him heel, but he should have probably been heel from the get-go, and no shade on him, but he pretty much knew that as well. He knew, hey, this is a new era, and I don't really fit in here, and people might like me, but as far as this is going, like, even if I'm still here, like, what am I doing here? I'm not one of the regulars, and even if I, am sticking around for a few months or whatever it is, well, after that, what am I doing? I'm going back to movies and whatnot. So, or I'm trying to go back to movies at least. So he already had, like, a short shelf life on that run. He wasn't sticking there for a long time. He was just there to do his thing for a few months and wrestle and whatnot. So, he didn't really fit in with the crop at the time, and he knew that. But again, he was able to take what he had and say, hey, how could I turn this? Like, and I think, like, so underrated his heel run, and it should have probably been, much more, but still, whatever. Not going to talk too much about WWE, guys, but just as an example, when you're talking about things, if you're going to bring somebody in, like, I think Bubba Ray, when he came in TNA, like, as a singles guy, and he had that amazing run against Josh Alexander, or that, amazing feud with Josh Alexander, like, I don't really think that the Bully specifically after that really delivered. Like, his match against Alexander was all right in many ways, but it also felt like kind of like this was, like, really carried by other people. It was carried by the good hands, and the fact that Bubba was just selling most of the match because, well, he really couldn't do too much, and still can't do too much, but he was a guy that never really did a whole lot. He was, a guy that got heat, you know, for saying the things he said or doing the things he did. So extracting like maximum heat with as little effort as possible is a great talent. And same thing, like extracting the most sympathy from people for the least effort in some ways is also something that a lot of wrestlers need to learn and need to pick up and need to grow and develop that talent and that skill. And you've got to be one of the people. If you're a babyface, in some ways you've got to stand out from the people. You can't just be another face in the crowd, so to speak. You've got to fit in with them, but you can't just be, you can be sort of the average Joe, but you've got to be more than just the average Joe, if you know what I mean. You've got to be, you know, everything, you know. So, or your own self, or, you know, you've got to be that diamond in the rough kind of thing, you know. Whereas the heel is, you know, sort of the opposite most of the time. You know, you're trying not to be, or trying as much to be not like the people in most ways. Because anything that relates you to the people kind of will diminish you getting hit. So that's one of those things. It's really tough sometimes to be there, out there, and, you know, being in your gym shorts or being in your hoodies or whatever else it is, but, you know, like that look or whatever else it is, like, you know, that you're going out there with, it's like, well, yeah, but you're now heel, so you, like, your actions or the way you're kind of working or anything else needs to implement that, you know, people shouldn't relate to you or shouldn't care about you or should hate you. Because again, if they're going to find a reason to like you, like, that ruins a lot of things, because it's like, why would they like me? They need to absolutely hate me because they need to love this guy, you know. That's the goal, and that's what it's all about. Like, if you're not a believable heel, if you're not, like, especially that, like, is as detestable as possible, the babyface has got not very much chance to get themselves over initially. So despite who they are, you know, if you're any part liked as being the most obnoxious and hated man that you can be, then perhaps you deserve to be in the babyface role. I don't know, but, you know, it's one of those things of saying, if you're going for cheers while you're the heel, then the babyface has got no chance, sort of thing. If you're, you know, if you're the babyface and again getting booed, it's like, despite no matter what you do, then it's very much like, again, that you probably should turn away or go somewhere else or try something else, or, you know, say, well, this is a failed experiment, and, you know, look at what they did in 97 or whenever it was with The Rock, when they turned him heel because people were chanting "Die Rocky Die" and all of that stuff, you know. So that's like one of the most famous examples of it. But, you know, that sort of thing has happened before, where it's like people have chosen a direction and chosen a thing, and they've gone, okay, all right, you know, let's go with this, instead of, you know, forcing against it the whole way. You know, let's go with it. People don't like him, okay, off to the races we go in a different direction. And once people were willing to accept him as cool and confident and a bit of a shit talker or whatever, but yet charismatic and entertaining, you know, that's when you start saying, well, he can be a, big time babyface. People are invested in this guy. Let's see where this goes, how this goes, and so on. So you do that and you go down that route. So now you need somebody even more detestable and perhaps not as charismatic, but also has something that brings them to that level of being, no, they're pretty much legit. They're not just, oh, they're here and they've got some things to do, or they've just been inserted here from the mid card, or from like, that's believability too. Like if somebody's, again, been a jobber or seemed to be in a jobber for the last few months, or like, you can work stories with somebody overcoming the odds, having had, or seemingly had a bad run or whatever else it is, or unfortunate losses, or being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or whatever else it is, or just missing out on something. That's something that they're kind of doing with have been doing with Jake something for a while. He hasn't really won anything. Like, he's won maybe 1 or 2 matches here or there, or whatever it's been in the last couple of years. But they've tried to portray him still as somewhat strong. Like, he always looks strong in the matches, but he always comes up short. And that's kind of the story that's playing out now. We'll have to wait and see where that all goes and how that sort of resolves and whatever. But it's the opportunity to finally address, or not address, but sort of contextualize everything that's kind of happened in a storyline. It might not have been an initial plan, but now they're like, okay, we've had this guy for a long time. It's been stop and start and stop and start and start and stop and whatever else it's been. He's been away, something else, blah, 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 so on and so forth, etc., da-di-da-di-da, whatever, and it's been up and down and whatnot. But, in the next 6 months, in the next year or two, we're going to lose Joe Hendry, probably. We're going to lose the Hardys, probably. We're going to lose Moose, probably. We need to start building up new stars, and this is the direction that they're starting to take with him. They're starting to say, maybe we'll put him with Kaz, or maybe we'll put him against Kaz. I don't know exactly what they're going to do there. Either he's going to turn heel and join with Kaz, or he's going to fight Kaz, all the way to the title, or whatever it is. So, or you can do the Evolution thing, where he's his protege or whatever else it is. Then 6 months, a year later, or whatever it is, here he is, wins the quarter shot or something else, or whatever else it is, and Kaz is all mad or whatever else it is, but he, gives him, powerbomb through a table or something, and he says, "I'm coming for you, Kaz," whatever. "I lay this challenge down to you, that's the anniversary," or what, after months or weeks or whatever it is of, telling him off or whatever and saying, "You don't deserve that, and you better not cash that in on me. You better use it on the international champion," whoever it is at the time or whatever, and things like this or whatnot, So, but that's believability, because the fans have seen this guy from whenever he debuted to now, barely win, always, so close yet so far away. A lot of people wanted him to rise up the ranks. Now it's potentially his time to start rising up the ranks, whether that's, again, as a heel, or whatever, or as a babyface, who knows, maybe he'll get there soon, because now they've got a story for him that will start, contextualizing, and, people will go, "Hey, yeah, that's right. He has lost. He hasn't gotten there Something's always gotten in his way. What's he gonna do? You know, like, is he gonna turn to the dark side, or, you know, what's he gonna do? You know, because that's the investment people have got. It's real. It feels real because it is real. It's not just, oh, we've started this storyline of this guy who's a jobber apparently, and now we're gonna turn around and say, hey, you've lost all your matches, and they've been here for like one match. It's like, or whatever it's been. It's like, you know, you've got potential. You could be under the wing of, you know, the king of TNA, you know, whatever. You've got to show it. Even if it's one of those things that wasn't like a huge plan, they're working with what they've got. This is the scenario we've got. This is the guy we've got. This is the reality. Okay, let's work with that reality and go from there. You know? But as I said before, believability is the most important thing. That's why, like, when I'm like, somebody is not, you know, like starting just to walk through everything, you know, or whatever, they're not really doing anything. They're just like, yep, step, punch. Next thing is you know, this person's gonna job me in the head or whatever. Okay, I got hit. Okay, cool. Next thing I know, I'm gonna come back and blah, blah, blah. No, you can't just be like walking through the motions and going, oh yeah, they hit me, I come back. They hit me, I come back, whatever. You know, like, you can't be sitting there and being like, oh yeah, hit. Oh, I got hit. Oh no, what am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to hit him back. Oh, okay, I'm coming back now. You know, you can't fake it. You've got to feel it. You've got to be like, ah, this is my time to come back, bitch. You know, make it real. Make it seem real. Make it feel real. Sell it for real. Like, you've been punching me this whole fucking time. You son of a fucking bitch. I'm gonna fucking get you, and I'm gonna tear you apart, you know, and then start going, damn, take this, you stupid bitch, or whatever, you know, like, I'm gonna kick your ass, you know, you can't disrespect me like this, you shouldn't have took your eyes off of me, you stupid idiot, you know, or whatever, things like this, because, again, make it real. If they're too busy, you know, dancing around and prancing around and going, oh, I'm so smart, I'm so good, I'm so strong, or whatever, all of this, you know, taunting and whatnot and all of that stuff, you look them in the eye and you go, you son of a bitch, you done fucked up, because you should have tried to finish me off instead of, you know, gloating and carrying on and all this stuff. I'm gonna rip you apart now, you stupid idiot, you know. And that's when they've got to try to get serious, you know, like, you know, when you've tore through them for 4 or 5 minutes or whatever it is. They've got to try and turn it around. And then they're like, no, I shouldn't have been so cavalier with this person there, you know, and I've got to work harder. I've got to get in there and fucking try to win this match now because I've been screwing around for too long, whatever. It adds to the believability of it. If you're just standing there, or not just standing there, if you're just kind of going through the motions, it feels like, again, you're going through the motions. You know, okay, they're going to hit me. Okay, I'm going to come back, you know, whatever. It feels like it's scripted because it, you know, now you're showing that it is scripted. You're not just acting as if I'm coming back now because I feel I've got the crowd behind me and they're chanting and they're cheering and, you know, you've been too busy dancing and whatever else over here, whatever, you know, and taunting me and all of this and whatnot, whatever it is. Now here I fucking come, bitch, you know. So you better prepare for ass whipping, you know. Make it real. Don't stand there and be like, oh, so I'm scripted to come back now, or you're, even if it's not exactly scripted, if the opponent, if your dance partner, your mentor, whoever it is that you're in the ring with, is saying, come back, you know, make your comeback now. You've got to make that comeback look real. Don't just be like, oh, this is the part where I come back now. Make it the part where you like, bitch, now I'm coming back for you, bitch. I'm gonna get you, you know. Make it real. Make it believable. Believability is everything. Because if you take me on that ride of you coming back and saying, yes, it's my time to fucking come back, here I come, instead of just being like, oh, it's my time to come back, okay, I guess I will, jab, whatever it is, I'll put in as little effort as possible to this comeback, and it's gonna look wooden and fucking, whatever, all of this, or whatnot. Then I'm seeing through it. Now I'm seeing that this is a performance, When you're lost in the performance, when the person is engaging you, you don't see, quote unquote, the dance, so to speak, sometimes, You don't see this ebb and pull of whatever, of, oh, it's time to come back now, kid, and whatnot, or whatever it is. You start to see the person doing the things, going, I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to come back because the people are behind me, or because you've been, screwing around, or whatever it is, So it makes sense. I'm not going to just walk through it and expect that, you're not going to try to fight me. You should try to fight me as hard as what you think. That's why I say, don't fucking take it easy, Don't take it easy. Even if somebody's meant to make the comeback, if they're not selling it right, if they're wooden and they're fucking not doing it right, fucking shut them down and tell them, what the fuck was that? Come at me like you're fucking want to kill me, because you know the story. Come on, fight me for real. Make it look for real. Don't make it look like, oh, this is the part of the script where it says I am to come back now. Oh, okay. So, but yeah, guys, we could go on forever, obviously, but I just wanted to go through it because, and I know a lot of you guys know, but I think it's so important, so important that everyone gets to understand this from another level of, and say, why? Oh yeah, because again, if your character, whatever, or your personality is not laid back, but if you lay back too much in the match or whatever, or in the promo, and this is something that friggin', when people have gone into business for themselves, bitch, you ain't going into business for yourself, whatever. That's a way of protecting yourself, If somebody does go into business for themselves, sometimes it's all right if somebody does, for, to teach you a lesson or something, sometimes, in some ways. Because again, as I said, if you're not fucking selling it and you're not fucking working, then they deserve to fucking go into business for themselves and say, what the fuck was that? Now make it real. Fucking shit. But, if somebody's going into business for themselves and going out of their way to go out of business, into business for themselves, it's well, I ain't putting up with this. It's time for me to start, either call the security or call whoever, management, get in here and fucking sort this out, because I ain't dealing with this. And if I have to deal with this, then I'm going to fucking shoot, because what else could I do? I've got to either I've got to try to save this segment, and I've got to try, or save this match, or whatever it is. And how else can I do that if somebody's going off script or going into business for themselves, whatever. So you can't go too deep, and you can't go into going into business for yourself, because otherwise, again, the whole thing doesn't work. It's all, everyone shaking hands at the end of the day, and everyone going, no, we need to get this person or this thing or whatever else over, because when people come to the ticket booth, when people come to the arenas, when people appear or whatever, this is the kind of show that they expect to see. So, they expect to see the highest level of work, not some guy. Oh, well, it depends where you're at, but like in TNA, like we don't expect people to be like still not indie darlings, but like still on the learning curve too much. And you can still be on the learning curve, but you need to have the fundamentals. These are the fundamentals. If you don't understand the fundamentals of like what selling is all about and what storytelling is all about and how to come back and how to feed for the babyface or whatever else it is, and you don't belong here. You need to understand those things. You need to be able to execute them in matches. You need to be able to tell those stories, and like you get better at it as you go. But again, you cannot sit here and be somebody that that hasn't got that level of believability or hasn't got that ability to turn the crowd in your hand, because without that ability you're not going to get anywhere in this area, because now you're on TV not every week, but most of the time. So again, you cannot be sitting there and saying, well, we'll just get by and whatever else it is, and we're signed, so we don't care, so we're just going to phone it in. We don't care. That's when you lose everyone, because they know you're phoning it in or whatever, and they know, hey, we don't really care. We're just here for like that. I don't want to say it too much, but that's what's happening at AEW. There's too many guys there that are phoning it in, and they don't care because they're just getting paid, And there are people there that fucking care a lot and whatnot and put effort in, but there's also a lot of people that are there, and some of them are very happy to sit on the fucking shelf and collect whatever money it is that they're, or what, not on the shelf, but at home or whatever, and collect the money that, they're basically guaranteed, and they don't really care. Like, so those people can, we're not interested. I don't think anyone should be interested in them, because again, if you're not going to put that effort in, at a certain point it is tough, because it's like, oh yeah, well, it's got nothing to do with me or whatever. I want to work or whatever. So, but but I not been called in, or when I get called, when I go, they say, oh, we've got nothing for you. So I just go home. So, and that can happen anywhere and everywhere, and does. So you just got to take your opportunities. And it is a lot more difficult, I think, for tag teams, especially modern tag teams, to do, because you're like, a lot of people now, it seems like a lot of times they're the two people thrown together randomly, whatever. Here you go, here's a partner, make it work, I think there's a lot more direction now, and a lot more like, how do you think X person will work with X person in a tag team? Whereas before, I think, like you talk about Wildcat, Chris Harris, and James Storm, they were just thrown together. And then it's like, here they are, one of the best, like, turns out one of the best tag teams. And all they did was basically follow, the training and the basic psychology and things that they were taught and whatnot in wrestling. So, but they did it so well, and they meshed together, and all the things, the believability was there, so to say. So, but yeah. Anyway, guys, I think I've chatted enough about this. I know you guys, like, main guys, get it. So, but yeah, I think it is an interesting and important subject and theme and whatnot to bring up or whatever. So that other people, get the understanding of it. So I hope you have enjoyed this one. If you have listened through, I hope you join me again in another one.